many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
Welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. Thank you for joining me this evening. And quite a few things I do want to go over. New ordinance in a area of the United States that would allow cops to enter private property without warrant. And I'm going to cover that. Few other things. First, I am going to get started off with something. It's something that many people, including myself, have talked about with the apps that you just pop on your phone, click the I agree to terms, and not really knowing what you're getting into and how a lot of the apps are stealing your data, basically, and having the ability to hijack your phone. This one out of Ben Swan, exclusive top 10 flashlight apps are stealing your data, even pics off your phone. Says here, the makers of some of the most widely used flashlight apps for smartphones are doing more than just helping you find your lost car keys. They are geolocating you and stealing your data. At least this is a claim being made by Snoopwall LLC. Snoopwall is the world's first counterveillance company, and according to the founder Gary Malifsky, in a web exclusive interview with BenSwan.com, the top 10 flashlight apps are stealing your data. And it's something that we've known. It's not just flashlight apps, but flashlight apps tend to be a common one that people download, get ones that can make it flash or strobe out. And whenever you're downloading the apps, you better look at the terms, because almost most apps in some way have the ability to steal data off your phone. And it's something that a lot of people just kind of take for granted when they download an app. Definitely the free ones are going to be more likely to steal your data. Not saying that the paid ones don't do that too. There's a lot of them that do. But the free ones, they're free for a reason. They'll make their money off of it another way, and that's collecting your data and selling it. But I'm going to play this interview here, Ben Swan and Gary Malifsky, Snoopwall.com. Here we go.
Could it possibly be true that the top 10 flashlight apps on your smartphone are actually doing much more than just helping you find your car keys. In fact, those apps may be stealing data from you and you have no idea. Well, that according to the president and CEO, the founder of Snoopwall. According to a new report by Snoopwall, the top 10 flashlight apps for Android are doing exactly that. Gary Malewski joins me now to talk about this new report from Snoopwall. Gary, thanks so much for joining me.
Ben, thanks for the opportunity to talk with your listeners and viewers about this very serious situation.
It is a serious situation. So help me to understand. Snoopwall essentially did an audit of the top 10 really of these flashlight apps for Android. And what you found was that they're doing basically everything, including using the flashlight on your phone, but they're doing a whole lot more than that too. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Ben, let me give you an example. If you needed a flashlight at the hardware store, would you buy one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, now what if the flashlight, when you hit the on button, it opened up in the back, it popped out an antenna, and it said, Mr. Swan, please insert your credit cards, bank account information, pictures, private and public, of your family and friends, your contact list, and by the way, I'm geolocating you and sending all this info to China or Russia or India. Now the flashlight will turn on. Would you use it?
Absolutely not. No way.
What if it were free? What if your favorite store were giving it away for free?
Nope, still wouldn't do it. Because I would want the flashlight to be a flashlight, and that's all I want it for.
Ben, that is the crux of the problem. We have a 500 million downloads just of the top 10 flashlight apps off of the Google Play Store, and we've analyzed them in Snoopwall's labs. And you can even download our privacy app for free and analyze whatever flashlight you have on your phone and see what we're talking about. But ultimately, they are stealing your contacts. They're connecting through backdoor or covert channels to other countries. And this is really crimeware, it's malware, it's cyber spyware. People go off and install these applications that are from malware developers. You know, nothing's for free in this world, and it's shocking that these are the most downloaded applications, but nobody's really, they're not reacting the way they should. I mean, there should be outrage.
Yeah, absolutely there should be outrage. And when I read your report, I was outraged by it. Simply, again, it goes back to this idea, and you and I have talked about this before. This is what Snoopwall is all about, but it goes back to the idea that all these companies are creating free applications for one reason. They want to geolocate you. They want to pull metadata. They want to access your phone, your camera, your pictures, your contacts. That's what these apps are really for. And so if you think you're getting a flashlight, you're getting so much more when you pick these up. Now, one of the flashlight applications you're talking about here, that application has been sued by the FTC. Is that correct, the maker?
Yeah, the brightest flashlight used to be #1. Now it's #2. It's still up to 100 million downloads. They were sued after 50 million Americans had it installed, and some people started to complain, saying, "Why is my flashlight app gathering information on me?" And some smart security professionals started to dig in. So the FTC was called in, and the FTC decided to sue Brightest Flashlight, the company that makes it. And the result of this is very interesting. They settled, so now when you go to install Brightest Flashlight, it installs, but when you click to run it the first time, it has a very long-winded privacy policy that now complies with the FTC settlement. And that long-winded privacy policy pretty much says, Ben, we're going to keep stealing all your information, except or you can't run our app. So most people say, I'm not going to read 5 pages of legalese. They just hit accept. So the Brightest Flashlight continues to be massively downloaded and continues to geolocate you, to read your contacts, to have access to SMS, to have access to the phone and internet protocols. It's maddening.
So in short, the FTC settlement was just tell people in as much legalese as you choose, but tell people that you are gathering this information on them.
Exactly. And you know what? The #1 flashlight app in the store today at Google, it's very interesting. Click on the developer's email account. Whenever you go into the Play Store, you can email the developer. You can visit their website. The developer email for most of these are Gmail accounts. They're not companies. Nobody gives anything away for free that has that many downloads. And #2, when you click the developer link, it says visit the developer's website for the #1 flashlight app in the Google Play Store. Ben, it goes to a drive-by malware website that instantly tries to download malware to, your computer, and it has all different ways. It might say, it keeps changing. It'll say, your Adobe Acrobat Reader's old. Click here to install a new one. Your video driver needs to be updated. You're infected with malware, and it will be a $33,000 charge and damage to your company network if you don't install this antivirus software. It's unbelievable that they can get away with this.
Okay, so let's talk about solutions. One of the things I saw in the security report simply said if you have one of these flashlight apps on your phone, get rid of it, uninstall it today. Is that where you all stand?
Absolutely. And what we've done is on our homepage, we put a link up to our threat report on these top 10 flashlight apps. We put a link that includes how to uninstall your existing flashlight app. Some of them actually mess with and edit and modify configuration settings on the smartphone. And some of them are so nasty that they modify files, which looks to me like very long-term malware. In other words, you uninstall the flashlight app, but it's already installed a Trojan. So some of them would require a complete reset, factory reset of your phone. It's that bad.
Wow. And then also, if you say, well, what do I do? Because the top 10 are all collecting this malware on me. So is there any place I can download a flashlight app for my Android phone where this isn't going to happen to me? You all are providing a solution for that as well, correct?
Well, we decided, here's what I did. I said to my engineers who were auditing all these flashlight apps, I said, what's the average file size of a normal flashlight if you were to write the code? And they said, it'd be about 50 to 100 kilobytes, a small little application that turns on the LED and brightens up the front screen, 2 buttons. What's the size of these top 10 flashlight apps, Ben? 1.2 megabytes to 5 megs, loaded with intelligent eavesdropping malware code to snoop, to spy, and to steal. So I just said to my team, why don't you just build a free flashlight and we'll give it away, guaranteed to not spy on people. We call it Privacy Flashlight, and we're pretty much going to launch it for free on Windows, Android, and iPhone on all 3 platforms for free forever. We're not going to make money. We're not going to advertise, just as a consumer advocate.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. I got to tell you a real quick anecdote here. My son, who's 10 years old, has an iPhone, iPod Touch, something like that. iPod Touch, that's what it is. Came to me the other day, and I had heard about this. We had talked about it, and I mentioned to him about this problem with the flashlight applications. And he says to me, well, Dad, today I was actually going through the App Store looking for a flashlight because I want one on my iPod Touch. And he says, I don't know what to do now. Well, now there's a solution for him. Like you said, a simple private flashlight. All it does is it lights up your iPod Touch, or it lights up your Android, and it operates like a flashlight. It doesn't do anything else. So, Gary, I can't thank you enough for the work that you guys are doing, not only to bring attention to this, but also to provide solutions for it, not just be the guy who's saying, hey, watch out, but saying, hey, here's something you can do that allows you to protect yourself and your family.
Well, Ben, thank you for the opportunity, and I hope a lot of people listen to this report, go to our website, to snoopwall.com, and learn a little bit more. And before they install a new app, to think twice about what is it really doing. Does it need to geolocate me? Does it need access to Wi-Fi? There's so many apps that are doing too much, but the flashlight is the one everybody uses.
That's right. Gary Milewski, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben.
Okay, again, that was from benswan.com. Go check out all the great articles over there at benswan.com. A great alternative outlet. New media type outlet. Again, that's snoopwall.com. Check them out, and apparently they're putting out a flashlight app that won't invade your privacy. We look at things like this, and we really take for granted with a lot of the technology we have. I know a lot of people that really just, they're either naive or take for granted, or just don't care to pay attention, and they walk around with devices that are basically spy devices on them. It's one thing to have a phone. It's another thing, when you have other electronics that have cameras built in. And I try to take precautions, And I'm actually looking, I want to build a laptop, a custom one that won't have a built-in camera. And the one I have right now does have something over top of it. Um, you still have the mic, built-in mics. Some people go in and disable those mics. Um, but you notice that you cannot buy a normal laptop from your Walmart or your Best Buy. That doesn't have a camera built in. You have to go find a custom one. And a lot of the custom ones now are starting to go towards built-in cameras. And if you have children, we understand that the children that are gamers and they have these built-in cameras like to, stream it, and now you're seeing all these swattings. They call a fake call in, and these kids are getting swatted, and older people are getting swatted, and celebrities have been swatted. Um, just be careful with the type of technology that you have. Um, I don't keep my mic on when I'm not doing the show. A lot of times I just unplug it or turn my board down where it's not putting out anything. No camera permanently hooked up to this machine. Um, it's one of those things that I have a lot of technology for what I'm trying to do. And a lot of times I just want to throw it all away. But I am passionate about what I'm doing. Therefore, I keep this technology around me. But it's best to take the steps um, to try to prevent as much as possible. Now, I know McAfee, he was going to be building some apps that will expose all of the apps that are trying to steal your data or locate you or any of that. So, you got things like that, and then Snoopwall, snoopwall.com, and these are great tools to try to prevent getting snooped on. Excuse me. So, if you notice that apps tend to be extremely large in size for what they're going to do, you got a simple flashlight app, or even things like Level, a simple Level. You see these apps that are definitely taking up too much room. There was a race car game one. I like race cars, so there was a race car one. I downloaded it and looked at how much, room that took up, and I'm like, yeah, I'm probably going to delete that. And I definitely look at the size of my apps before I download them. Okay, give me a second here. issue. Restart the browser. Bring all this back up here. Okay. Now, many of you know about hydroponics. Many of you know about 3D printing. And I was amazed to see something that it just kind of like the whole concept kind of shook me a little bit. Like, is this real? And I think it was how it was titled. But what this will allow people to do, I think for preppers, for just people that want to self-sustain, I think this is going to be pretty revolutionary. Open sourcing 3D printing hydroponics. And, you know, you could grow all kinds of vegetables and stuff year-round inside doing hydroponics. If you live in a cold region, winter-wise, you can still grow it. Or short season, you know, you can grow this year-round. And I think it will revolutionize the ability for people to come across this stuff. Definitely with 3D printing's price dropping so much, this is definitely something good to hear about.
This is Rudowski of WeAreChange.org here at the 2014 Makers Fair in Queens, New York, and I just found James here who has a very interesting invention. Can you tell us what this thing is here?
Well, what this thing we have right here is a 3D printed hydroponic system. What we're using is recycled bottles as well as a few 3D printed parts. There's a lot of 3D printers here at the fair, so people are seeing all these trinkets, bracelets, coat hangers, and that's all well and good. But we like to have a product that's usable in a day-to-day situation that we can reuse, that we can use to better ourselves and stuff like that. So it's a hydroponic system, so we're growing plants without dirt. You remove the soil, so we drip the nutrients into the water and it goes right over the roots. It keeps the plant growing more plant and less roots.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's a vertical system. Most hydroponics run horizontally, so it saves a lot of space. You can hang 4 or 5 plants in the space of about 1 coat rack, which is ridiculously space saving, especially for people who have greenhouses. That's a lot of headroom, not a lot of shelf space, right? So other than that, the system's also really cheap because it's recycled. It's made with 3D printed parts. It's also very energy efficient. We use an air pump, a Marina air pump, the same kind you use in your aquarium. Because of the low energy usage on it, you can run it 24/7. It's a couple pennies a month. It's no big deal to anyone. And we use the air to lift the water through the ventrili system to stop us from having to pump water vertically, which is a challenge because water's heavy, as well as you need a bigger, heavier, more expensive pump, right?
Yeah.
So other than that, the system's pretty self-contained, as you can see. The water comes through, I have the magic piece here in my pocket, through this little device right here.
Which is 3D printed.
These are 3D printed. This piece in particular cannot be made on anything but a 3D printer because of the complexity of the curves in it and the way it's designed inside. So what happens is 2 lines of air go in and shoot straight up the line, and what that does is it causes a vacuum in the 3rd tube down here. So it pulls a little bit of water at a time as well as shooting the air up. This gives you a nice air-lifted drip effect, exactly what your hydroponic system needs to run. So it brings it up the tube here, up to the top of the system. It drips into one, down to the next, essentially watering all your plants all in sequence. And what this does is it means it's watering all the time. You can't overwater, you can't underwater, you can forget about it for days and there's no problem. You only have to top off the bottom tank, the reservoir at the bottom. This is a pretty big bin, but you can use anything bigger than a 4-liter milk jug. You only have to top up the water every 2 weeks. Keep an eye on the plants to make sure they're healthy and happy, and you can have delicious vegetables in the corner of your apartment all year round.
And you could program this through software on your computer and have the exact amount of water you need, the exact amount of nutrients you need.
The software that we're working on developing right now is to fully automate and monitor the system, so that let's say you go on vacation for a month, you can monitor the pH, you can turn the lights on and off if you're using lights as opposed to a window, etc., etc. The limits are endless, because with stepper motors and whatnot, soon enough you'll be opening your curtains by remote control, right?
Yep, with everything digitizing, everything evolving.
Exactly, right.
So if there's a zombie apocalypse, if there's a police state martial law happens, or if you're just interested in sustainable communities and growing your own food, especially in a city where you can't really do that, you could do that also in your windowsill?
On your windowsill or off your balcony, because we have a lot of people with apartments, especially in a place like New York where no one's got a yard, and they're like, well, I can't grow a vegetable garden. It's like, well, yes, you can. Well, let me show you how. And one of the other things we're doing, like you mentioned, the zombie apocalypse, everyone likes the self-sustainability aspect of it. We're working on finding some pumps that will work well with our 12-volt solar panel. So as soon as we get it on a solar panel, then, like you said, you can take it outside, you can take it anywhere, no problem, right? And no power cords.
Have it inside here during the winter and also grow your food indoors, and then have your own products, your own.
Yeah, one of the other things about it is because it's just a hanging system, if you're hanging it from a hook inside your house or from your balcony, if you want to move the system, you pick up the system and you walk somewhere else with it. No big deal, right?
So if you're interested in starting off building your own kind of garden in your own window, if you're in a city, you could also do this. How do you get started? Where do people find you? What's the first step to really get this done?
Right now, all the parts, the schematics for all the 3D printed parts, and the plans to help you build a system are available online for free. You can check them out on Thingiverse. 3Dponics is search. You can also go to 3dponics.com, or 3dprintler.com is our 3D printing website. All of these places you can find the parts. 3Dponics is an online community that we're trying to build right now. We just got funded on Kickstarter, so we're building the website really big, really fast. We're trying to make it so streamlined and easy for people to connect that you're going to find your neighbors with systems, you're going to find your neighbors with printers. It's going to be easier and easier for people to build one of these without even having to contact us about it. But definitely you can come find us and drop us a line. We're always interested in talking to schools and community centers and community gardens. A lot of people are doing that these days. We're always interested in sending out systems and helping people get started. But like I said, all the parts and schematics right now are free online, so we're encouraging people to go and do this now, because the more people that we have building the system, and as soon as you put one in your house and start using it and feedback on the website, you become a research station for everyone else in the world using one of these systems right now. So I don't know hardly anything about gardening. Like I said, we're a 3D printing company, so it's just an idea for us. But someone in another country said, well, roots don't like the sunlight, so we can 3D print parts to cover that. We can 3D print accessories for all sorts of things.
And you have these things right here, too, and this is what we're talking about here, right?
This is what we're talking about. These are the covers that go over, but like I said, it was just someone else's idea, and if you bought a product in a box, took it home and set it up and had an idea on how to improve it, what do? You call the CEO? Well, that's a lot of work, and this way we're all talking with each other all the time. We're all trying to advance all the time. No one's trying to profit off this right now. I'm not trying to put a product in a box with a sticker and sell it to you, right? So like I said, open source, that's the key. A lot of people are asking questions like, what do I feed it? What do I use for a medium? Like, that's one of the benefits of it being such an open source and versatile system, is you can put anything in it. You can feed any plants, you can use any plants, you can use any medium. You don't have bottles that are 2 liter, you can use a small bottle. If you don't have a window, you can use grow lights, right? So people need to realize this isn't something that's like, here's a square, stay inside it. It's like, let's all build it together, right?
Well, that's what happens when you open source. I'm very happy you guys are doing this. It's a very useful product. So if you're interested in growing your own food, maybe getting off the electrical grid, definitely check these guys out. The description will be in the link below. James, again, thank you so much for open sourcing everything and helping people being free and independent.
Definitely.
Okay, that was We Are Change. And let me get you the website. 3Dponics. 3DPONICS.com. And that was open source, so gives people a chance to grow where they normally couldn't. Whether it's the space or being able to grow year round, you have that ability now. Okay, moving on. Now, this is something that Indiana kind of dealt with here. And there was something unique that the governor signed into law that countered this in Indiana. And I'll get into that after I go over this. Out of freethoughtproject.com. Montville, New Jersey. In the upscale New Jersey community of Montville in Morris County, a proposed ordinance would give sweeping power to law enforcement that would allow officers the right to enter private property without a warrant if underage drinking is simply suspected. Which this isn't as wide as what happened here in Indiana. Under the new ordinance, officers would have the ability to search homes with probable cause without any warrant required if underage drinking is even suspected. Residents are understandably questioning whether the privacy gutting and property rights destroying ordinance gives law enforcement too much discretion. I just feel that it's not really their business to be going into people's houses, said high school senior Brandon Zevitz in an interview with CBS 2. If you want to do that, you need to get a warrant. Just coming in our houses searching, eventually it's going to turn into hunches and all that, and once you base it on a hunch, then it's all downhill from there, said high school senior Stephen McManus. Attorney Fred Simaru, who wrote the memorandum for the Montville Township Committee, disagrees, claiming that police won't have any new power to enter a home. In an interview with NewJersey.com, he said that if the ordinance passes, the police will have exactly the same power to enter a home as what currently exists. All the same rules apply, he said. Samaru states that if police have probable cause to think teens are drinking at a party without authorization from adult relatives, they can already enter a home because the homeowner can be held criminally responsible for allowing teens access to the alcohol. Samaru's assessment seems flawed, and here's why. Standard operating procedure for law enforcement when coming to a residence where underage drinking is suspected would typically consist of coming to the door and asking if anyone is underage drinking in the residence and asking the homeowner's permission to enter to be sure. If refused entry, the officer feels they have probable cause, the officer can then petition a court to grant a warrant for entry into the residence. The language of the new ordinance gets rid of the need to procure a warrant and would simply allow officers to enter a private residence if they believe probable cause exists without judicial oversight. Just think of the potential for abuse such an ordinance would have any resident that law enforcement wants to search, but doesn't have enough probable cause to get a warrant from a judge. They could simply have a fellow officer make an anonymous phone call that there's underage drinking taking place, and officers could then show up and enter the property without a warrant. This is extremely dangerous ground to tread upon and presents a very slippery slope in a tyrannical future where the rule of law is simply a relic of days gone by. And you can read the rest of this article at Free Thought Project. But they're absolutely right. You know, they always try to use double speak. It's the same. No, it's not. You wouldn't have to write the law if it was the same. It's idiotic. Why would you need that ordinance if that would be exactly the same that's going on right now? There wouldn't be no need for it. That's just simple logic. Definitely disappointing. What happened here in Indiana in a response to one of the Indiana courts trying to rule that cops don't need a warrant to enter your property if they think probable cause. Um, there was a law that was signed in that would make it lawful for residents to defend their house from unlawful entry by law enforcement or state agents without a warrant, unlawful. Um, Something like that could be passed in certain places, I guess. Probably not so much from New Jersey. Um, Pretty stupid, pretty stupid. I have another one here. Let me try to find it. This one was also from the freethoughtproject.com. California cops can now take your legally owned guns under new Orwellian snitch bill. Under a new California law, which is sure to be rife with abuse, police can confiscate lawfully owned weapons. The only justification police need to seize legally owned private property will be a family member or law enforcement officer claiming that the person may commit gun violence. The new gun violence restraining order will give families and law enforcement. I already read that. A needed tool to reduce the risk of mass shooting and gun violence, both in the home and on our streets, said Nick and Amanda Wilcox, legislative co-chairs of the California chapter of the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence. Another BS campaign. Under the so-called gun violence restraining order in the court system, immediate family members and law enforcement agencies could ask a judge to order guns temporarily removed from certain individuals. Of course, it has wide support from all levels of law enforcement agencies. The legislation was introduced as a reactionary measure to the tragedy which occurred in May of this year. Elliot Rodger, a spoiled Hollywood brat and psychopath, went on a shooting rampage which left 6 dead and 13 injured. Because of the actions of a single sick individual, Californians will become less free. This is, after all, the nature of the U.S. police state to react to situations by stripping Americans of their freedoms. Sure, on the surface, it seems like a rational idea. No one wants a crazed maniac with a death wish to have guns. However, the instances of mass shooting are so rare that it is a complete crapshoot to whether or not this Orwellian law will prevent anything at all. California already has some of the toughest handgun restrictions in the U.S. Gun owners must pass a state and federal background check, then must wait 10 days after the purchase of a handgun before they can pick it up at the store. There are also several other laws on the books to prevent dangerous and unstable people from obtaining firearms. Despite these already strict laws and diagnosis with Asperger syndrome, Roger was still able to discreetly purchase 3 handguns and kill people. We've witnessed time and again that sick criminals who want to kill will kill, and the laws which try to stop them only hinder the freedoms of those who never and will never commit a crime. What this law will do, however, is encourage family members to trust in the state rather than themselves, to promote snitching to authorities, and is wide open for abuse. It is no mistake that this snitch culture is the subject of so many dystopian novels. And is that not just true? You can read the rest of that article at freestateproject.com. thefreestateproject.com. Um, it's one of those things that we know what's happening. We've read our history. We understand our history. We understand when the government starts going after your ability to defend yourself. Um, you are seeing the most corrupt government you possibly can have. Okay. I had one here. This right here is government for you. If it'll load. Here it goes. FCC considers fining NFL broadcasters for use of Redskins name. The LibertyBeat.com. The Federal Communications Commission chairman will consider a petition that asks the agency to consider fining broadcasters with the National Football League who continue to use the Redskins name when referring to Washington football team activist John Banzoff III has registered a petition with the FCC asking the regulatory agency to strip Washington radio station WWXX-FM on its broadcasting license for using what he says is a racist and hateful word. If the FCC agrees with the petition, broadcasters would be punished for using the football team name. The Washington Redskins is also currently battling the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office after they canceled the team's trademark registration based on alleged racism. And we know what this is. Ban everything. That is exactly what it is. They're going after your free speech. They're going after your ability to speak out about these things. Political correctness is completely out of control. Completely out of control. I don't know where this is going to end up heading because it doesn't ever seem to stop. It just grows and grows. But I do expect them to start finding people, individuals, for their speech. And it's going to have to eventually end up in the Supreme Court over, right to freedom of speech. I do see it heading that way. That's pretty sad. That will be a sad day. But is it really that far off? Okay, I got one here that I'm going to play. This one is Ebola, a covert operation to wipe out millions. And it basically seems like that. I think most people can see it spreading and turning into that. This Ebola virus that came from a region that has been dealing with Ebola for who knows how long. I'm not sure exactly when it started, but they've been dealing with this for years, so, you know. Well, also, this Ebola virus also just becomes something out of control. We have to start asking why. Why a place that has been dealing with it for years all of a sudden sees it just burst. I think there's something kind of weird about it, and I think there could possibly be a link between it and respiratory illness, um, things that are going on here in um, America with the kids. So I'm gonna play this real quick. This is from AMTV, Ebola Covert Operation to Wipe Out Millions.
Christopher Green, you're tuning into AMTV Alternative Media Television. So I can't help but think that this entire Ebola scare is some kind of covert operation, of which the President of the United States, Barack Obama, is using it as an opportunity, the guise of humanitarian crisis, to set up AFRICOM, which was announced by the State Department to send immediately 3,000 U.S. armed, ready, body-able troops to West Africa. Just conveniently, at the same time, we're supposedly fighting this war against ISIS in the Middle East and parts of North Africa, where we recently saw an anti-congressional illegal invasion by the Obama administration in Libya with the ouster of Muammar Gaddafi. So what do we know about Ebola? Well, first off, we know that the CDC in the beginning lied to us, said that it wasn't a risk, that they would contain the crisis. This was all coming from WHO, the World Health Organization. We know that approximately 5,000 people or so have been infected, and half of those infections have resulted in fatalities. Some odd 2,500, 2,600 people roughly now dead as a result of being infected by the disease. Now the CDC estimates that upwards to 500,000 people, yeah, that's right, they've gone from just a few thousand cases to estimating that in a worst case scenario, there could be up to 500,000 people infected by the disease. Now, most people are familiar with the, I guess, old-fashioned form of Ebola, the Zaire virus, the Zaire strain, which you can only get by human-to-human contact through touch, by exchanging the virus itself, by touching or maybe having sex or making out with somebody or exchanging bodily fluids. But what the CDC and WHO is worried about, but Obama would probably see as an opportunity in this part of the world, is the disease aggressively mutating into a much different, potentially airborne strain. Now, there have been studies by scientists around the world, namely in Canada, where they've actually seen instances of these mutated strains going airborne and in pigs and monkeys. So this has happened before. And of course, if humans are being infected at an alarming rate, and let's say we go from just a few thousand infections to 500,000 or potentially millions, think about that risk to the global population. Now, another very valid question that people need to ask is, why haven't we shut down air travel coming into the United States from sub-Saharan Africa? Places like Sierra Leone and Liberia, where Obama is setting up AFRICOM, military command centers, conveniently with perfect timing. At the same time, we're fighting ISIS, sending 3,000 troops in Monrovia, Liberia. You see, we have to ask these questions. Why isn't the CDC, WHO, and our terrorist watchdog groups, Homeland Security, these Orwellian organizations in the United States, shutting down air travel if the CDC is warning that up to 500,000 people could potentially be infected by the end of the year? And again, this could potentially grow at an exponential rate. We've all seen the movies Outbreak, these Hollywood productions where it moves from just a few people to thousands, to tens of thousands, to hundreds of thousands, to millions, and then it destroys all of humanity. It becomes the next bubonic plague, and all of a sudden we have a modern day dark ages. Others are arguing that this is kind of the Malthusian prediction theory that this intense population growth over the years can only be contained by things like disease. And also, we see parts of Africa, of course, although it's very agrarian in scope, we see a crisis in poverty. We see a lot of people going hungry, unable to feed themselves. They don't have proper sanitation, of course. In a lot of these parts of the world, water, et cetera, isn't clean. And now this disease is spreading and potentially wiping out the human population and cleansing the sick earth, so to speak, and cleansing this massive human population growth. So, again, I can't help but think that this is somehow a covert operation, another humanitarian crisis that the Obama administration is going to use as an opportunity, just like they've tried to sell the lie and the con job of the chemical sarin gas attacks in Syria not too long ago, so the United States they could generate public opinion to bomb the shit out of Bashar al-Assad in Syria and enter a new war. When that didn't work, and it turned out that independent investigators, the United Nations, and others pointed that it was actually the terrorist armed rebels on the ground that have been funded and armed by the United States, they used another giant scapegoat in the form of fake beheadings. So again, Obama likes to use humanitarian crises as his smokescreen to accomplish his military objectives in this part of the world. We have to ask, why would we be putting 3,000 armed military personnel, soldiers on the ground with little to none, to no experience containing a viral outbreak in this part of the world unless they had a military objective in northern Africa and perhaps the Middle East, where we are allegedly at war with the new convenient boogeyman ISIS. Now, of course, none of this is to say that this isn't an extreme and very real threat to the global population and to the United States of America and every country on the planet for that matter, but it is most definitely going to be used as an opportunity by the commander-in-chief that makes up this regime in the United States and this Orwellian police state set to destroy all of our liberty and freedom and send us again, once again, into another very self-destructive and costly war. I'm Christopher Green. Get this out everywhere. I'm curious to hear what you think. Put your comment, question in the description box below and click the link below to support our sponsor. Check out
AMTV on YouTube, so go check them out. I don't know exactly how bad this will get. We've just recently had a gentleman down in Dallas, which I'm going to bring up this article. I had it up earlier, but I gotta find it again. Jeez. I don't know all kinds of issues here. Okay. This one out of the Blaze. If it'll load. Okay. Rick Perry, some school-age children had contact with Dallas Ebola patient, updated. Texas Governor Rick Perry said in a news conference Wednesday that some school-age children have been identified as having some contact with the confirmed Ebola patient in Dallas. These children have been identified and they are being monitored, Perry said, adding that public schools should have every confidence that federal, state, and local health workers are making sure the virus is contained and treated. A day after Dallas County Health and Human Services confirmed it was treating the first patient diagnosed with Ebola virus disease in the U.S., it added that was closely monitoring another possible patient as well. According to WFAA TV, all people who were in contact with the first patient are being monitored, but one in particular is being watched more closely, a health official told the news station Wednesday. Let me be real frank to the Dallas County residents. The fact that we have one confirmed case, there may be another case that is a close associate with this particular patient, the health department's director, Zachary Thompson, told WFAA. So this is real. There should be a concern, but it's contained to specific family members and close friends at this moment. The health department emphasized in a tweet Wednesday that outside of the one patient in isolation at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital, there are no other confirmed cases in Dallas. Well, it's here. And the chance for it to spread is pretty likely. It really is, because let me bring something else up here. When you look at how our travel, like Mr. Green was talking about, travel from these countries, that Ebola is breaking out everywhere. We aren't really doing anything to stop that. And there's other reports, a second possible case in Dallas. Another one, this is all Al Judge report in our headline, up to 18 exposed. Another one, airline scramble tracked down hundreds who came in contact. U.S. visas held by 13,500 people in 3 Ebola countries. Top doc, more will be infected. Preppers stock up on supplies. I have one here. Ebola panic. Parents pull children from schools. And this is out of Star Telegram. Dallas parents fearing Ebola removed children from school. Parents on Wednesday were removing their children from a Dallas school where a student may have had contact with the Ebola patient diagnosed Tuesday. A letter to parents of children at L.L. Hotchkiss Elementary School, 6929 Town North Drive, says in part, this morning we were made aware that one of our students may have had contact with an individual who was recently diagnosed with the Ebola virus. This student is currently not showing any symptoms and is under close observation by the Dallas County Health and Human Services Department. As a precautionary measure, the student has been advised to stay home from school. Since the student is not presenting any symptoms, there is nothing to suggest that the disease was spread to others, including students and staff. At a news conference at noon Wednesday, Dallas Independent School District Superintendent Mike Miles said students attending 4 different Dallas Independent School District schools possibly have been exposed to the Ebola virus. He said the district was informed that 5 students were in contact with the Ebola patient over the weekend. They have been in school since, but are now at home and likely will be kept there for 21 days. Now, we have so many things threatening us right now. our dollar could collapse. Russia and China could help that along. Russia and China could, we could get in a big old confrontation with them. We have the ISIS problem. We have our own government helping ISIS problem. Have our own government spying and harassing and attacking us. We have an open border that could allow drug cartels, violent criminals, and ISIS to get in, while police are beating people up on the street and shooting people. We live in a world that I don't recognize from what I was taught America was. I think more people out there are starting to feel that way. I think more people are realizing what's starting to go down, what's starting to happen. Give me a second here. Okay. Well, maybe not. Might help if I turn this on. Okay. This is something that I've talked about, the Tea Party hijacking. And Ron Paul has addressed this. He addressed this in an interview with RT on illegal Syrian war, terror blowback. And they talk about the hijacking of the Tea Party. And, you know, I listened to this interview and, you know, something about Ron Paul is he's been pretty consistent. But since he's been out of Congress, he tends to show a little bit more of the libertarian side of him. I think he realizes, though, with if you're going to try to work from the inside, which he was trying to do in Congress, that maybe you can't show your libertarian side as much. But with him, I think he's been consistent. But he tried to work, well, the government is created under the Constitution. Therefore, if I'm in government, I worked under the Constitution. And Constitution is a lot more liberty-minded form of government than what we have now, but it's not freedom. And I think that's something Ron Paul understands. But he also is a realist that realizes where we are right now. But I want to play this interview. Give me a second for it to load. Here it goes.
What's going on, everyone? I'm Abby Martin, and this is Breaking the Set. Today, I'm very excited to be featuring my extended interview with former congressman and three-time presidential candidate, Dr. Ron Paul, where we discuss everything from the new war in Syria to being marginalized in the mainstream media. Stick around, you don't want to miss it. Now let's break the set.
Speculation has been replacing hard fact. Terrorists don't read.
Campaign, not only calling to audit the Federal Reserve, but to abolish it altogether. Well, 6 years after Dr. Paul first introduced legislation to audit the Fed, his efforts seem to have paid off as Congress finally approved a bill to shed some light on the activities of this elusive banking institution. Of course, U.S. airstrikes on ISIS targets in Iraq and now Syria have effectively diverted the nation's attention away from domestic issues. And considering how wildly popular Dr. Paul has been in his foreign policy views, I invited him on the show to have an in-depth discussion about what's unfolding in the Middle East. I first asked him if he thinks the latest bombing campaign in Syria is legal under U.S. and international law.
No, absolutely not. It's not legal under international law, which is important, but I don't hang my hat on everything on international law as much as I do on our laws, our Constitution, our laws. And I would say the whole mess that we've been involved in the Middle East have been technically illegal because we've initiated war, but we haven't declared war. So, yes, this expansion of the war, a matter of fact, it's immoral in the sense that our president, wanted to wind these wars down. He was going to finish the war in Iraq, and here it is expanding it massively, not only in Iraq, but up into Syria. So I consider what's going on now specifically in these last few weeks, I consider it totally immoral. I think it's illegal under our laws and illegal under the international law as well.
It's fascinating to hear him kind of double down on that Bush doctrine logic, the preemptive war doctrine there, Congressman. And I wanted to play a clip of Obama speaking at the UN General Assembly this week. Here's what he had to say about ISIS.
No God condones this terror. No grievance justifies these actions. There can be no reasoning, no negotiation with this brand of evil. The only language understood by killers like this is the language of force. So the United States of America will work with a broad coalition to dismantle this network of death.
What's your response to Obama saying the only way to deal with ISIS is military force?
Well, I think that is going to be an attractive statement. A lot of people are going to say absolutely because all they see is what's on the surface, and there's a lot of nasty people out there wanting to kill. But from my approach, we have to do a little bit more than just address the violence that is occurring. But why is there violence? What caused the violence? Why do we have it? Could we make it worse? Will there be more violence? And my argument is everything that we do there increase the amount of violence. And because they are vicious and nasty and they're killing people, they are reacting. I think that everybody, who are directly involved, have a right to think about it and deal with it. If we had that going on in our country, we would deal with it. And I think the people there should deal with it. We're talking, we don't know exactly how many, but the numbers are pretty significant, into the thousands, 20 or 30,000 people, a significant amount. But their success is rather amazing of what's going on. And but what about the people around there that are complaining? I don't know of any government that's saying, we love ISIS and we want to support them and we're doing this. And that includes millions of people. So I would say, they're responsible to deal with this. If you need a coalition, let it come together. But why should somebody from 6,000 miles away that has been stirring this pot for so long be the group that's going to bring everybody together and organize the fight? So if they're a true threat in the region, the people in the region ought to deal with it. And I would think that if you had a coalition over there, which would be more natural, maybe Israel would even want to help out. But I think the United States should stay out of it. I think we've instigated too much of it. And the sooner we come home, the better.
Right. Why do you think we never hear about Israel's policy on ISIS, or Syria for that matter?
It seems like it's logical. We don't have even treaties with Israel, and yet everybody knows, exactly our relationship with them. But I think if And ultimately, I think the relationship we have is very harmful to Israel because they're totally dependent on us. If they were less dependent on us, I think there would be more natural coalitions built in over there, and they would work with their neighbors a little bit better. But as long as there's an assumption that we will always be there to take care of any problems, I think that doesn't encourage them to develop some of the relationships that would be much better. And I think when there's problems like this, I don't know why they couldn't have cooperated with other regional people, that is Israel, to deal with Saddam Hussein if he was a real threat. But it turned out that the lies told to the American people about Saddam Hussein turned out to be, all a bunch of lies. So I would say that the less we do, the more incentive that all the countries in the region would deal with this if indeed they consider it a threat. When they don't do anything, it must mean they're not staying up overnight. But when the system stirs up so much fear in our country. We have people in this country staying up late at night. What are we going to do about this? I think they should stay up late at night, and that's the reason I'd like to see our men come home from the region.
Right. We can't keep acting as the Air Force for every single country whenever they ask us to, Congressman. We have more than enough problems here at home, and of course the mainstream media is fear-mongering us incessantly all day yesterday. I thought there was going to be a terrorist attack in New York City. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And why do you think we hear this bellicose rhetoric? I mean, you know this more than anyone else, Congressman, because, of course, you were put in the middle of this, where you have the establishment basically pushing us, giving us two options, this false dichotomy, either arm rebels or bomb people. I mean, why is it that those are the two options when it comes to solving problems in the Middle East?
Well, yeah, they are bellicose, and you're right about that. They must have an incentive. I do not believe it's they're concerned about the defense of America, because right now they're saying they've changed the definition of imminent. If they are imminently plotting to do something against somebody any place in the world, that's the same as a true imminent threat to us. So they have to stir up the fear. The people have to be fearful and hateful. They did this, before the Persian Gulf War as well as the Iraq War, on all the horrible things that would come about. But their motivations are only they could explain them. But there's probably quite a few. I think that some people like to sell a lot of weapons. The other day when I saw the first primary responsibility of our Air Force when they went back in there was to break up all the American weaponry. And I thought, well, I guess the military-industrial complex will like that. We were putting weapons into Syria, some of the rebels, as well as Iraq, and it ended up in the hands of ISIS. So we have to go in and blow them up if we're going to do anything. So it makes no sense unless those people back here, hey, we get to build these weapons again. But there are some other motivations, too. It used to be oil was the big issue, and world power, and there are so many things that exist that I guess every individual has a variety of different reasons why they think we should be there.
Let's talk about isolationism, because, of course, when you talk about these kind of things, people call you an isolationist. What's the difference between isolationism and non-interventionism?
Well, isolationism is when we isolate other countries. We isolate Russia by putting on sanctions. We isolated Cuba for many years. We isolated with sanctions and bombs the government of Iraq as well as Iran. We've isolated them. So that, to me, is isolation in the worst sense of the term. Non-intervention means we get along with people. Anybody who wants to be friendly, if it's honest friendship, we should be friends, and we should trade with them. And not have entangling alliances, as our founders, advised. So isolationism is very, very negative when we do it to other people. But this idea that I am the is rather bizarre, because I never endorse sanctions, and I never endorse tariffs or anything else. I want to be able to go to Cuba and different places, because I believe that the more you trade and talk to people, the better off we'll be. This is why I've been disturbed by this setback with Russia right now. And as well as I've always been quite satisfied since the 70s because when I was in high school, we were fighting the communist Chinese. But after that, then Nixon took this bold step, and we started trading. And, we do get along with China a lot better. So I was disappointed to see the setback right now over Ukraine, because I thought the motivation for trade would override it. And hopefully it'll still play a role in restraint, on what both countries do, in that we go back to talking and trading with people.
Right. I mean, it is very disappointing, Congressman. When you were running for president, you made the most sense among the candidates because, I think a lot of people can agree with me here, because when it came to foreign policy, you just laid it all out. You talked about blowback. You talked about everything basically that we're seeing now. You were routinely smeared for it. I wanted to play a clip of an exchange between Bill O'Reilly and Glenn Beck on Fox about you.
Ron Paul needs to on foreign policy. Keep that to yourself. You sound a little like Osama bin Laden at times. It's not America's fault. Have we played a role in making things worse? Have we helped them in recruiting? Yeah, I think we have with some of the things. But it's not America's fault. And I don't think Ron gets that.
No, he doesn't get it. And he hasn't ever gotten it. And he never will get it. So we're going to discount him.
Interesting, because here's Glenn Beck, who basically hijacked your ideals in the Tea Party in 2008 and took them and kind of ran with them, except embraced this really hard-hitting military solution there. Doctor, why do you think, that they said this? What's your response to this kind of total dismissal of your views?
Well, they do this, of course, because they're representing the establishment. But the people themselves, I remember on some of those confrontations, the one with Giuliani, the establishment, everybody in the media, came down hard on me, except it was an explosion of interest in anybody that was under 25 because they thought it made a lot of good sense. They just can't stand to hear the truth. I know one time O'Reilly said that I should never refer to history. We don't want to hear about history. We just have to talk about now. Because now they say that if I say something that, sort of explains things, then they say, well, you're un-American. Well, that blame America first. But I don't blame America. I know there's a lot of good people in America, and I don't blame any American in particular, but I do blame foreign policy of our government. And that's quite a bit different than saying that, I'm unpatriotic, I don't like the military. That was the other thing. I was unpatriotic and I didn't defend the military, and yet it turned out that the military supported me over all the other candidates. So it's just demagoguery, and they're just, I don't know whether they do it out of total ignorance or they have a sinister motivation. But on the long term, I think the American people aren't anxious to go into another war. That's why I get a little bit disappointed when the war propagandists come back. A year ago, we made sense and we were able to put pressure on the president not going into Syria. But all of a sudden, a lot of clamor and public opinion has shifted. But I still think the numbers are on our side. People aren't looking for another war. And hopefully our voices can be heard.
We have to take a short break, but stick around for part 2 of my exclusive interview with Congressman Ron Paul.
Are you like me? You want your comedy news with some teeth? Want your comedy news?
Over the years, Dr. Ron Paul has been one of the most vocal advocates for limited government, lower taxes, and a less intrusive foreign policy. These ideals helped establish the original Tea Party, which began as a grassroots movement but was quickly co-opted by the establishment Republican Party. Taking this into consideration, I asked Dr. Paul what he thought of the political hijacking of this message.
One should expect this. So if they see a movement that is galvanizing and that they can't get rid of the movement, then they have to infiltrate it and modify it. So you're absolutely right. Because the first Tea Party meetings occurred during our campaign, the big fundraiser on the original Tea Party Day anniversary. But it is true, the Republicans moved in and it became an arm of the Republican Party. But that doesn't mean that there's still not a lot of young people out there feeling this way. It's just not, and a lot of people in the Tea Party movement still would feel this way, and they don't quite realize what's happening. But if you take what's happening, in our organizations, we have a large number like Campaign for Liberty, and how about Young Americans for Liberty? That is doing fantastically on our campuses, and they know the difference, and they're not going to be cowed into, giving up on any of these beliefs. I heard so often in the campaign they'd come and say, "Ron, we really love you because you have good policies. You're a fiscal conservative, and we like your talk of liberty and the Constitution. But please change your foreign policy. It's your foreign policy that's so bad." So I would go to the campuses and I would tell them that story. And I said, then I would sort of try to get their reaction. Do you think I should change my foreign policy? And of course not, because the foreign policy is what brought them out. That's what made them enthusiastic. But they knew the difference very clearly. So,
Exactly.
And I'm still going to the college campus. Yeah.
Exactly. We know what's going on, Congressman. Prolific journalist Nafeez Ahmed has made the point as well, of course, in a recent article titled "How the West Created the Islamic State." He outlines how ISIS is a direct consequence of the neocon vision of imperial bloodlust over in that region. How has this happened, and do you agree with that premise?
Absolutely, and that's why it's sort of like if you have a financial crisis because you spend too much, borrow too much, and print too much, you don't find the answer in doing the same thing over and again. So if you have people who hate us and want to kill us and will travel over here to try to kill us because they see us as occupiers and crusaders and haven't killed a lot of their people, well, what is the answer? Just kill more? And think it's going to go away. Of course, they tried to propagandize, and Obama kept saying, Al-Qaeda, they've been dispersed. There's hardly anybody left. It may be true. That organization dispersed, but something even more radical pops up, and that's ISIS. So that is, you have to look at cause and effect. And I'm convinced of it. I'm convinced of the notion of blowback. These things come back to haunt us. There's always unintended consequences. So many people who do support these policies that I think are so wrong, most of them do it with good intentions. They get cowed into it thinking, oh, if I don't do that, I'm not supporting the military and I'm not patriotic and this sort of thing. So they go along. But others have ulterior motives, and to me, they go against what America stands for.
And of course, the U.S. has built this coalition of Arab states to join in these strikes, including Saudi Arabia. This is a country that beheads people regularly for things like sorcery. It's helped embolden ISIS. Why does the U.S. turn a blind eye to the fact that its partner in this new war front is one of the main financiers of terrorism?
Well, I think we made that promise to do it, and we always fulfill our promises. Roosevelt promised, don't sweat it, do what you want, we'll protect your kingdoms. You just send us the oil and make a good price of it. And so that's been existing for a long time. But just think, the horrors of ISIS is pretty bad. Even though we don't have all the information about the beheadings, the recent beheadings and what happened and how much was propaganda or what. But yes, there's a lot of violence there. But, the same week that there were supposedly 2 beheadings in Iraq, there was like 12 or 15 in Saudi Arabia, and they've been radicalizing. We actually paid to radicalize some of them when we wanted bin Laden to be a radical, because to us, it was in opposition to communists, and those communists are going to take over the world. It'll be on our doorstep. So we didn't hesitate. It was policy. And even those individuals who promoted that policy back then said it was a good idea, even though it changed and actually was turned against us. But no, I think we treat Saudi Arabia in a special manner. If they use as an excuse for us to be over there still, well, we got the authority after 9/11, which says you can go after anybody who was responsible for 9/11. Well, believe me, the people we're trying to kill right now and the people involved had nothing to do with 9/11. But 15, of the 19 were Saudi Arabians. And yet some of the Saudis who were in our country on 9/11 and 9/12, they got a free ride. They got in their airplanes and they got out of town. They weren't even questioned by the FBI. So you're right to infer that Saudi is treated differently, and it's obviously done for a motivation dealing with a lot of different things,
Okay, I'm going to stop that right there on the Saudi Arabia thing. Now, you know, I brought up the whole point. I think Saudi Arabia is going to be the capital of the new Ottoman Empire. I think that's what the end goal is over there in the Middle East. And let me see if I can find this. Let me see if I can find this. Okay, I have one source for it. I can't find the other one. It was here. This one said it was removed. This one said it was removed. But I do see it here from Alex Jones' channel. Saudi Prince. War against ISIS really about removing Assad. This is basically what I've been saying. So I'm going to play this clip here.
This is the Alex Jones Show Sunday edition with me, Paul Joseph Watson, Infowars.com. And riding shotgun is David Knight. Of course, we just played the clip before the break of David Cameron comparing anybody who questions the
airstrikes against ISIS, the first step, and then ultimately removing Assad?
I don't know, but I hope they are. Because you can't simply deal with ISIS and not deal with Assad.
There were Saudi warplanes involved?
Absolutely.
Muslims dropping bombs on Muslims?
Well, you know, we don't consider ISIS as being a Muslim group because of what they do to Islam.
That's pretty amazing.
Let me find that whole clip. I'm trying to find it. Give me a second here. I know it has to be on here. Here it is. Okay, I'm gonna play it. Maybe.
You know, Saudi Arabia says it has pushed for 3 years to get the U.S. involved in Syria, and it was a linchpin in forming the coalition of Arab states now helping carry out airstrikes. But while America's focus is squarely on taking out ISIS, the Saudis quietly hope airstrikes will be part of a much broader goal for forcing Syrian President Bashar Assad out of power. We talked about that with the country's former U.S. ambassador, Prince Turki Al Faisal. Are these airstrikes against ISIS the first step and then ultimately removing Assad?
I don't know, but I hope they are. Because you can't simply deal with ISIS and not deal with Assad.
There were Saudi warplanes involved?
Absolutely.
Muslims dropping bombs on Muslims?
Well, we don't consider ISIS as being a Muslim group because of what they do to Islam.
But they say they are creating an Islamic state.
That's what they claim. And unfortunately, some people believe them. But their actions belie their words. You don't simply create an Islamic state by chopping people's heads off and enforcing your opinion on them.
Do you hope that the U.S. will go beyond airstrikes?
You mean send ground troops?
Yes.
I think if the need for it arises, I hope the president will change his mind.
Would Saudi Arabia be willing to send in ground troops?
Look, we sent in our aircraft. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't send in our ground troops.
You saw what the Iranians said, that this effort by your country and others was illegal in Syria.
What about his troops being on the ground killing Syrians? This is the irony and, if you like, the rather arrogant attitude that they give themselves the license to send troops to kill Syrians, but then when we try to defend the Syrian people, they say that is illegal. That's unacceptable.
As you know, Charlie, Iran and Saudi Arabia are longtime rivals, but their foreign ministers met this week here in New York, and I'm told that Iran's President Rouhani, who you spoke to, could actually visit the kingdom soon, something that Prince Turki said would be a welcome step.
Yeah, I mean, after that meeting between the two foreign ministers, the Iranian foreign minister said this could be the beginning of a new era in the relationship.
Yeah, this is just the beginning of this campaign.
We're going to see more hate spurred up in the Middle East, and I think it's going to end up in one of those situations where we're going to see in 20, 30, 40 years us fighting in the Middle East. We've almost been there so long that we are as old as the fight is there in the Middle East. Because after being there for generations, the newer generations, that's part of their history, is our involvement. When we first started getting involved, we were new involvement. Now we're historic involvement. So it's going to be continued fighting in different regions. And, you'll have Saudi Arabia as the ones, running the thing. And then, I heard this from Ron Paul. And this even, is exactly what I've been talking about.
Hello, Iowa! I'm back!
And not this, but...
And so glad to be with all of you on this beautiful day.
There she is, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, in her first appearance in Iowa. Since losing the caucuses there in 2008, she came in third behind John Edwards back in 2008, and first place, of course, President Obama. Her attendance at the fundraising event added fuel to the speculation that she plans to run for president in 2016. It certainly looks like it. From all of this, joining me now, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, who has also been expected as being in that group, potentially to make a run himself in 2016. Senator, good morning. Good to have you here today.
Good morning. Glad to be with you.
So what did you make of Hillary's appearance over the weekend?
Well, I'd like to see her back in Washington testifying about her role in the Benghazi tragedy. There's still a lot of questions. I asked her point blank when she came the last time, what were they doing in the CIA annex, and did that have anything to do with the attacks? And she acted as if she knew nothing about it. But it's funny, now reports have been coming out for about a year saying that she was the biggest and most eager to get arms out of Libya to send them into Syria. So there's still a lot of questions we've got for her if she decides to come back here.
Indeed, there are. And more revelations about Benghazi this morning that we're going to get to a little bit later in the program that we need to talk about as well. Let's take a listen to one more bit of sound from Hillary, and then I want to get your thoughts on that.
It is true. I am thinking about it. But for today, that is not why I'm here.
No, she was there to eat steak. It was a big steak fry in Iowa. But, I think a lot of people are just kind of over this whole dance. Why do we all do the dance? Why not just declare? Why not just say that you're running? And some might ask you the same question, sir.
That's a fair question. And I think for me, there are still some considerations. There are family considerations. But also, I think you don't know where things will be in 6 months. Will the public be open to your message? Will your message have a chance of resonating? And nobody wants to undertake this ordeal unless they think they can win. And frankly, I think I'll know a little bit more in about 6 months, kind of where the public is and what they're thinking of my message before we make a final decision.
Well, that's fair enough and understandable. There's a story this morning in the Washington Post that questions whether or not you've been moderating some of your stances in order to potentially prepare yourself for a broad audience if you do decide to head in there in 2016. And one of the things that it talks about is your stance on ISIS, that a few months back you said that you didn't really see the American interests that were at stake, and that now you've been supporting the idea of airstrikes. Where do you stand this morning, given this more horrific news that we got over the weekend?
Well, I've consistently said ever since I got in public life that when we do decide to go to war, there should be a vote in Congress. And so I'm still exactly where I've always been on that. When you get to Congress, then there's a debate. Is it in America's interest? And that does change depending on the facts. And so 5 years ago, I didn't think ISIS was a real threat to us, but I didn't want to arm them. That's where I disagree with some Republicans, also Hillary Clinton, and also President Obama, is we never should have sent arms into Syria because that allowed ISIS to grow stronger. But now I think, I'm like many Americans, I am very affected and somewhat emotional about the fact that they're killing our journalists. And I think it's going to backfire on them because I think you're now going to see the civilized world come in a united fashion after them, and I think they'll have no place to hide.
We heard from General Hayden over the weekend and your colleague Lindsey Graham both saying that there is no way that this can be done without a larger presence of at least special forces on the ground to back up whoever might end up coming in to help us. And there's a lot of questions about that as well. What's your take on that?
I tend to disagree. I think the first 10,000 soldiers marching into battle need to be from Iraq, live in Iraq, and they need to be fighting for their homeland. The second 10,000 need to be from Saudi Arabia because, frankly, Saudi Arabia has been aiding and abetting this by really for decades funding radical Islam, and many say that many of the arms that Saudi Arabia has been funneling into Syria have gone into supporting ISIS. So Saudi Arabia needs to step up, Iraq needs to step up, Turkey needs to step up. There's nobody in the surrounding region that says they're in favor of ISIS now. They need to step up and put their soldiers and their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with that. We just spoke to KT McFarland, who certainly agrees with that. If a vote were to come to Congress to ask you to go to war against ISIS and to call it that, would you vote yes?
Yes, but I would try to sunset the provision. I've been upset that we voted 15 years ago and people are still using a vote from 15 years ago. So I think
I'm going to stop it right there. Now, you look at the whole situation, whether it be Saudi Arabia, the U.S., arming the Syrian rebels and saying that we're going to continue to arm Syrian rebels against ISIS when the Syrian rebels work with ISIS is such a... They are playing you for dumb. They are playing you for dumb. And I would definitely side with his father more where we shouldn't be involved. That's a war that the people that live there need to fight. And he mentioned that, but going into being a part of it is what helps grow the situation. It's not going to help the situation. And I don't think we're going after ISIS. I think this has to do with Assad. And I don't agree with Assad. I don't agree with ISIS. I don't agree with any of those factions. That's why there needs to be... If you're going to arm anybody, you must arm everyone. That way the people that are fighting for good have a chance. The people that don't want to fight are usually going to be probably more likely the good people. The ones that are forced into fighting. The ones that don't want to, but they know if they don't, they lose their life, their home. We have our own issues here at home, and I guess for Americans, in one way, it can seem like, well, that makes our government have to fight in our front. But the problem is this will come back and hurt us, the everyday person. That's who is going to get hurt by this. So I think that we should have them fight their battles. Now, if we're worried about ISIS coming over here, we should take steps to defend our border from terrorist people. And again, why everyday citizens should be armed. I'm going to play a quick tribute, or it's a video from We Are Change, the death of James Traffickett Jr. And many of you might know of his broadcast and all of the work he's done forever. One of the pioneers of what a lot of us are doing. And it's sad that we lost one of the true patriots. But here we go.
Change.org, and I just found out someone that I know has passed away. His name was James, a trafficant. He died at the age of 73, and 6 months ago, this is what he told me.
I got to be careful. It's like a lot of friends say, they've already destroyed you, they've taken away your name. Be careful you don't get too much in the public eye again, because they'll kill you.
Now, as of right now, we don't know a lot of the details of exactly what happened to James. We do know that on Tuesday he was driving a tractor, and according to his aide, he got a heart attack, crashed the tractor, causing it to flip with him inside of it. He was rushed to the hospital, where he passed away today, September 27th, 2014. As of right now, the trafficant family is mourning the death of James, and they have not released any details about his death. And I wish to respect those wishes and not to spread any conspiracy theories, rumors, or assumptions online like other people are right now. But in this video, I want to pay tribute to really an outstanding, amazing life that James lived. James A. Trafficant was well known for being the little guy who was able to stand up against big government. He was known as a blue-collar guy who was never afraid to be himself and to speak honestly from the heart. As a sheriff, he spent 3 nights in jail after refusing to foreclose on people's homes after they were laid off from the city's dying steel industry. Ed O'Neill was even making a documentary about him and is still currently finalizing it. In 1980, he was charged with taking bribes from the mafia, but representing himself, he was successfully able to convince the jury he was doing a one-man sting operation and was found not guilty. He then went on to become a congressman from Pennsylvania, and even as a Democrat, he slammed Bill Clinton many times and even told Janet Reno that she should be the governor of Beijing. In 2001, he was charged and convicted for bribery, not paying taxes, and corruption charges. He was expelled from the U.S. House of Representatives in a unanimous vote except for Ron Paul to banish him from Congress. James always made the case that he was politically prosecuted for being outspoken and standing against the government. And looking at today's political landscape, I think he was right. I mean, we have Timothy Geithner, who didn't pay taxes. He never went to jail for that. The head of Monsanto is now the head of the FDA. Now, you could see clear corruption, clear bribery, clear tax evasion by the Obama administration, and yet again, no one gets held accountable and sent to maximum security jail, not a country club jail where they have golf courses and tennis courts and all this other crap. No, James Traficant was sent to real federal maximum security jail, and he faced the full sentence that he was served. And even when he was in jail, he decided to run for Congress and got 15% of the vote. The man was in jail and people still decided to vote for him. He was an amazing, charismatic human being, and the latest thing that James was working on was called Project Freedom. It was a plan, a bill, kind of a proposal to get rid of the IRS and the U.S. Federal Reserve System. You can check out the plan because the link is in the description below. He told me about this 6 months ago when I was able to spend some time with him in Orlando, Florida during a recent conference. Being around James, he was always very blunt, honest, spoke from the heart, and never was afraid to tell you what he thought about you. It was truly an honor and pleasure to be able to spend some time with him, and he's survived by his wife and 2 daughters. I leave you with James speaking as eloquently as he always did.
They create 169 new bureaucracies and agencies with all kind of positions and jobs. Just that one thing. Yeah. So they're creating government jobs. Like that one year, they had the big explosion of jobs. It showed a great revival in America. It turned out that 400,000 of those jobs were part-time census workers. Yeah. The government was paying. I mean, when it came to light, they were all embarrassed by it. Yeah. Look, you got to go the old-fashioned way. Government can't be hiring people. Government got to get the hell out of the way. We don't need a Department of Energy, a Department of Education. We don't need an EPA. Congress has set standards. The states could operate within those standards and set up their programs. This is the United States of America, not the central government of America.
Let's not also forget that with Obamacare, the IRS has been increased more than ever throughout history than before.
Well,
even
my bill would eliminate the IRS, and even though I don't believe it was ever legally ratified, it would repeal finally and put the nails in the coffin in the 16th Amendment. Yeah. And it's time we do that. Sons of bitches.
Very well said.
And that was a tribute to James A. Traficant Jr. And he was born 1941, died 2014. And you can go to the project he was working on, projectfreedomusa.org. So you can go check that out. Definitely someone that was trying to fight the system. And he lived to his dying day fighting the system. And I think many of us will. Many of us don't look to give up this fight anytime soon. Okay. We are getting close to the end of the broadcast. I kind of mentioned this last time, and it's this virus that has been coming over these, maybe, give me a second here. These children, which I say, hey, vaccine program over in Africa, Ebola, respiratory illnesses, polio, respiratory, vaccine program. It's just all seems to come together, doesn't it? Out of Next News Network, quick one real quick. Polio-like symptoms coming out of this virus. I covered this last broadcast a little bit, but here's Out Next News Network.
Here in Boston, doctors at Children's Hospital are treating 4 kids with polio-like symptoms. Experts are unsure if it's related to the recent outbreak of enterovirus D68. Some of the children admitted to the hospital did recently have enterovirus, and now they have other symptoms. Weakness in their arms and legs. One child has already been released from the hospital, but the other 3 are still being closely monitored. Doctors are saying this is not polio, but they're trying to determine if there is a link. The CDC is overseeing much of this investigation. There are similar reports also coming out of Colorado. And we're getting a clearer picture how 3 soldiers and high-ranking officers from Afghanistan made their way to Canada from Cape Cod. The Globe reports the men found a YouTube video that showed the best way to cross the border. They spent more than $1,600 on taxis to get to Niagara Falls from the Cape. The officers were...
Okay, I just want to play that polio-like symptoms. There was another report out just recently. 90% of New York City measles victims were vaccinated against it. And, you know, I look at a lot of these ailments in the vaccine programs, and we see more ailments. We see more vaccines. We see more ailments. We see more vaccines. Cancer, you know, tumors. It's just... It seems like it's out of control, and people aren't waking up fast enough. But there is a movement, and you see them fighting it in the media now, where they have their spokespeople out there talking about, you know, this move away from vaccines is threatening the lives of these kids. I don't think so. I think the vaccine program is threatening the lives of these kids. I don't trust it. Now, if you choose to do it, that's up to you, but I personally don't trust it. I could be wrong. Vaccines could be great, but from all the evidence I've seen, I wouldn't trust them. I don't trust the people that make them. I don't trust the healthcare industry because it's an industry. Healthcare industry. I'm not a tool. I'm not the guinea pig for you. It's one of those things that I think more people are questioning what they're being told, what they should like. If we actually ate better as, you know, a society, cared more about what we're putting in our bodies, I think we could improve health that way. Hygiene has already improved health among the human race. This is things that we should continue to do, not see how many more chemicals we can put in the body before it kills someone or causes paralysis, spreads a disease, who knows. I think there's, again, enough out there to point out that, you know, maybe this stuff isn't the best for you. Okay, we are coming up towards the end. I have a little note here I wrote down. Coming on after this broadcast, Continual Condition Live. They moved to Wednesday, 8 p.m. right after this broadcast, so always try to tune in to the other broadcasts here on UCY.TV. Always informative information and many different viewpoints from all the hosts. And it's a way to try to expand how we perceive the world around us. And I've been happy with this network and being a part of it, because even when we disagree, we agree to disagree, and we expand on our knowledge, expand on the viewpoints of others too, because not all of us are the same. Not all of us are expecting the same out of life. But I think what we always come to a conclusion on is that we all have the right to the freedom to seek out that type of life without harming others. And I think we need to continue spreading the message of freedom and liberty and what it means. And it doesn't mean that, you know, we're going to have people run around as crazies any more than we already do. It means that we won't have the central authority figure that also is running around with impunity as crazed lunatics. It's not a society without rules. It's a society without rulers. And that's what we're seeking. We're not seeking chaos. We want more harmony. We work to spread love, respect. We express, you know, how beautiful diversity is. And all these things are key things when it comes to a free society. And we also know that humanity still exists among people. We need to stop thinking that it's law enforcement or the government that helps us. When you call in a tip to law enforcement, it's not law enforcement that was helping society. If you've seen someone being abused or robbed or kidnapped or raped or their property stolen, you are the good person because you are trying to stop that. We can still do that in a free society. But we won't have an organization with the immunity to be able to kick down the wrong door, flashbang a little kid in the crib, and get away with it and not have to pay any restitution. We have to learn not to be offended by other people's lifestyle. To not try to rule over other people and force a type of lifestyle on other people. And we shouldn't allow other people to do it to us. That is a free society. And that is what every single day we move farther away from. Whether it be our own government, United Nations, corporations. We have an inherent evil that has continually preyed upon us. We have unnecessary evils claiming authority over our lives. We call ourselves a free country, but we are not free. We just tend to have a better way of brainwashing a populace to live in a invisible cage. That's what we need to expose. That's showing them the matrix that's right there in front of them. When you hate getting up every day, going to work, you're not happy. You spend your life working your butt off and never succeeding that happiness you believe you should be able to have. It's because we're stuck in a mental prison. We get inundated with chemicals and drugs. We are being dumbed down. We are being pacified. And we're being controlled. It's time that we wake up to it and wake others up to it. This fight isn't over, and it's continuing to grow the more people seek freedom. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch you this Friday. And again, stay tuned for Continual Condition coming up right after this broadcast